Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jen, and if you're new here, I am a chronically ill neurodivergent content creator who attempts a PhD on and off, which is on and off due to said neurodivergence and chronic illness. And I'm a writer, that too. I should really work on that kind of intro, but anyway, I wanted to record today, I suppose, because I'm having a day where I am just really, I'm really struggling with my sensory sensitivities, or at least that's what I've been calling it, is my sensory sensitivities. And I've just been thinking recently, within the context I work in, which I don't want to go into too much detail about, but I work with a lot of occupational therapists and different kind of, I suppose, clinicians, healthcare staff, things like that. And I suppose when you're around that group of people, you hear their conversations quite a lot. Like, my sister is a speech therapist, so I feel like I just grew up listening to her talk about this kind of stuff and things, and it's just made me quite aware of a few of my own kind of, I suppose, my own sensory needs, because I talk about them a lot in work in terms of doing someone's sensory profile and making someone aware of their sensory profile. And it's interesting because my first foray into the world of neurodivergence back in, I suppose it would have been 2019, maybe, to be honest, was a conversation I had with my sister when we went on a trip to Edinburgh. It might be 2018 even, and it was the first time we'd been away when it was just the two of us, and we were being really honest with each other, and I was being really honest with a lot of my experiences of the world for the first time. And I had a conversation with my sister around sensory processing disorder, and I had only vaguely come across this. At the time I didn't work in this arena, and it just made sense to me, I guess, that I would have had a lot of sensory processing differences. And as far as I was concerned then, that was the furthest I was able to take that mental investigation and leap. I didn't want to look at it further at all. I wasn't able to really, and I wasn't emotionally ready. I think if you'd mentioned autism at the time, I would have been quite affronted, and I wouldn't have been willing to, or able to, I think, even do that kind of reconfiguration of what that even means, so that you can reframe your emotions in relation to it. I think I would have just shut down, and I think I would have taken it as an insult. ADHD, then my understanding would have been, I would have probably laughed if someone had said that in relation to me. So sensory processing disorder was as far as I got, and it's funny because since then, with my own autism and ADHD diagnosis then in 2021, I've obviously thrown myself into this world, really become involved in it, and feel like my awareness of those experiences, but also a lot of, just neurodiversity as a paradigm in general, has expanded. But I haven't ever really given my sensory needs the same focus since that initial conversation with my sister, which feels a bit strange because I do think it's one of the areas that on my assessment came out as being, quite pronounced. In terms of like the spokes of experience of autism in particular, I do have quite a lot of like repetitive behaviours and rituals and things like that. And I do have, executive functioning differences, and that's where ADHD tends to pop in a little bit more. But there's some areas that I didn't feel I related too much to some of the assessment, which is, the nature of an autism diagnosis isn't that you have to have 100% of every single trait ever to exist. Instead, it's just, your own unique profile. But the sensory processing differences is something that I knew from the off was accurate, in the sense that that was quite different. And I think my assessment was pretty general about it, and very much just went into the concept of being having sensory sensitivities, and kind of didn't look into it any further, which is absolutely fine. in terms of like that broad an assessment. That assessment for autism and ADHD, though it happened in 2 parts, but it did, you know, it was so long and it was so in-depth that I think if you had asked me to do a sensory profile at the time, I would have been just exhausted. And I think I would have argued that it wasn't that important because I mask and camouflage my struggles anyway, so it's not like my sensory needs were going to offend someone, I think would have been my apparent logic and thought about it, which obviously isn't much apparent logic or thought. But we've been talking in work about the importance of being aware of your sensory needs in terms of whether you're sensory seeking, which I think are behaviours that are probably talked about a little bit less, particularly in the autism community. And if you're sensory sensitive, and if those sensitivities can become triggers that trigger anxiety or, you know, an autistic meltdown, whatever that might be, for you, or shut down. For me, I can become quite like frozen or inert, really, in that, or I will repeatedly expose myself to my sensory triggers without realising I'm doing it for the purposes of getting something done, something usually I want to get done, like studies or work project or something, and then face burnout as a consequence. But it's directly linked to my sensory needs. So yeah, I wanted today to do a quick, easy online sensory assessment, and it's more a sensory profile creation than an assessment, and I think it'd be really beneficial for me to become cognizant of exactly how sensitive I am. I also think it'd be really good for me to know where I land in, I suppose, in the realm of everyone else. I tend to have this assumption that though I might be sensitive in some areas, I'm not particularly more sensitive than anyone else, and that actually everyone else has these exact same experiences but just copes better, which, you know, doesn't make sense. And I know in my heart of hearts that's not true, but it's still how it feels. So with that preamble, that'll probably be longer than the assessment itself, I have my phone here and I want to just kind of dive in and give it a go and just talk about it, because a lot of my sensory needs are conflicting with ADHD and autism and how they interact, and that experience of AuDHD. And also then they interact with things like how I navigate my chronic illness and stuff like that. So it's a conversation I'm trying to start having with myself, basically, so I'm making you have it with me too. That's the crux of it. So let's dive in. Okay, so I'm really sorry, I'm sitting on the ground and I feel like I always have to sit on the ground to film, because I need to kind of feel floppy and not too contained in a chair, but my ankle that I had surgery on in November is still very stiff and sore, and I always forget this till I'm down here, but here we are. So this assessment is giving things in the context of, it's giving you scenarios, such as, like, for example, the first one is saying, I prefer the lights down low, and you can say agree, neither disagree, neither agree or disagree, or disagree. I can already tell that it's going to be wild to me that anyone would ever be able to stay neutral on any of these, but I will. We'll see how it goes. So yes, the first one, I prefer the lights down low. I absolutely always do. In work, we have a real aversion as a group to the big light. And I have, in this room, when I moved in, there's 6 spotlights, and it used to be a doctor's surgery, so, you know, spotlights were great, but they're aggressive, and my dad put in LED lights because they would last longer. I never tried, like, I don't like having them on. So the next one, I love things that flash. Absolutely not. I remember going to, like, the Rose of Tralee and things as a child and just seeing all of those, like, flashing toys and things, and as a kid I would like the aesthetic for how the lights looked, but not that the lights moved. I always knew that. I didn't mind neon lights, but if they moved, that was aggressive. I usually dress in subtle muted or soft colours and tones. I mean, I feel like I have to say agree, because I do tend to like to wear pastels more than anything, and that definitely is because they're softer rather than whether they suit me or not. I don't mind wearing reds, but I tend to prefer to wear a block shade of something. I struggle with a lot of pattern. If someone is wearing something very patterned and it's a busy environment and they're talking to me, I'm just taking it in a bit less. I enjoy the brightness of a sunny day. Yeah, I do really enjoy that, because that feels almost like cleansing or something. But then again, I always need to wear sunglasses and I can't handle it for too long. So we'll say slightly agree. I need quiet to concentrate. I would say that's not necessarily true. I can study really well in cafes and things like that, places where the noise is, you know, not consistent. I can do that. I'm better some days than others, but even when I'm here and I'm trying to do PhD work, I would still have some probably music going or something, so I don't absolutely need it. Loud, noisy environments often stress me out. I think they always stress me out, but I've realised that my stress doesn't come in the form of maybe what I traditionally consider stress. I think my stress comes in the form of repressing that stress and pretending it's not there, until the point at which then I can't contain it anymore, and I become quite snappy with other people. And I hate that that's what I do, but it is what I do. I love music, the louder the better. No, I don't. I was at a gig recently with my mum and my sister, and it's a very chill kind of gig. We're all sitting down, kind of almost cabaret vibes, and it was just really lovely. But the second the music started, Mum got so excited for needing that live music. She loves the beat of live music. I don't love that. Like, I don't love concerts. Like, for me, going to the Eras tour was about the fact that was about celebrating the storytelling of Taylor rather than the fact that Taylor's even singing live. Yeah, no, I do love music, but no. I find myself making noises for enjoyment. No. No. I don't tend to have a lot of vocal stims or anything like that. I noticed that very quickly with my autism diagnosis and joining the community. When I first got my autism diagnosis, I immediately kind of started spending a lot of time with the autistic community in Ireland, which was fantastic, but it really made me realise the things I didn't do. And one of these was like stims and stimming, or like even like my mum, my sister and my dad, but to a lesser degree, would tend to talk to themselves a lot even, or talk repetitively. And I think it might be soothing, but for me, no. No. Absolutely not. Oh, this one's about smells. I instantly need to get away from certain smells. Yes. Yes, I think smells is a strange one for me, because my tolerance for smells is very variable. My tolerance for lights and things like that is quite similar every day, but smells is very varied. But I would still say I need to get away from certain smells. If I don't like a particular food, it's usually because of how it smells. I would say probably not. I mean, if I don't like a food, there's 1,000 things with food in terms of the texture, how it looks. I can almost visualise what it will feel like in my mouth, and that feels like a form of harassment nearly. So the smell is important, but it's not the most important. I often go out of my way to take a deep breath around a scent I love. No, that would not occur to me. I always find it strange in books when writers write characters doing that, and I always thought it was an exaggerated form of something. Like, oh, the writer didn't know how else to show that this person enjoys the smell of freshly cut grass, so they show them having this big inhalation, and then I realised other people actually did that. Fragrances, aromatherapy and scented candles are an instant mood booster for me. No. I like candles and I like certain scents, but it's really not a necessity. I certainly don't have a real love of perfumes. I always have something in my mouth. I'm smiling because this would have been really true as a child. I think I ate actually a lot of chewy foods for the input, but I would say probably still to a certain degree I need to be drinking something that is different temperatures quite a lot. I will have a hot drink and a warm drink at the same time, or a smoothie that's quite thick and coffee that's quite thin at the same time, especially if I'm trying to focus. I notice I do that. So I hate brushing my teeth. I really disagree with this. I actually really disagree with that. I love brushing my teeth. I think I really like how it feels. So I could eat the same thing every day and have a bland diet. Well, I'm going to agree with that because that's just true. That's not a hypothetical. That is just true. Spice it up. I love exploring new foods. Absolutely not. The unpredictability really alarms me. I also don't have a lot of food interest, so no. I often find clothing painful or uncomfortable to wear. Yes, yeah, that's pretty strong. Like the last day in work, I wore this jumper that I've worn before, and I really like it. It's pretty soft, but for some reason, whatever way I washed it, it came out quite hard out of the wash, and I really contemplated at lunch like going to a shop and just buying a t-shirt or something so I could take it off, and I didn't, and I really think I should have, because I think I just made myself tolerate it for no reason. There was no good reason for it. And don't touch me unexpectedly. Hugs are on my terms, absolutely. My sister will tell you that. And sometimes I like to touch other people's clothes or hair. Absolutely not. I don't like doing that. I would not usually be someone in a shop who has to feel things as well. You know, like my mom would be touching things, be like, oh, that's so soft, and I don't mind doing that, but it wouldn't be, I think if I'm on my own, I never think to do that. So no. And at people's hair, I always found it strange in school when people would be like, oh, can I plait your hair? And we'd all do that. I used to just never do it for anyone else because I just didn't want to touch anyone's hair. I remember thinking it was gross. I can't even describe why I think it was gross, because it wouldn't be that I thought the person didn't wash their hair. And they could objectively have stunning hair, but I still wouldn't want to touch it. Messy activities like slime making sound fun to me. Absolutely not. God help me if I ever have children. I'm a thrill seeker, roller coasters, fairground rides, and anything that goes fast. No, but also this is hard because I think I struggle with knowing what's what. I don't think I ever would have been particularly one for anything that went fast. I never was as a child. Now I tend to avoid roller coasters and things because of such a like cortisol peak, and also just like my POTS, blood pressure and things like that when I go upside down, that it's almost not worth it in case I happen to get sick. But I also just don't feel like I'm missing out. Like, I'm a very measured driver, and I don't mind driving slow. I don't sit still. I like to balance, wobble, rock, or move. Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, you can tell here by the way I'm sitting, I keep moving and shifting about, and I can say it's to do with my ankle, and it is, but it's not fully to do with my ankle. So yeah, I would say that's actually probably really true. I don't think I'm the most hyperactive person. Like in school, you would not have thought it, but that's because I would have held an inner rigidity within myself to make myself appear like I was still, but inside I'd almost be vibrating. You won't find me running. I prefer a slow and steady walk. Yes, yeah, I do. I do prefer that to running, but that's also because when I run, I don't like how my clothes feel, and I don't like feeling like my hair is moving, and there's a lot of unpredictable things. It's not so much about the running itself. Being in the back of the car often makes me feel sick. I'm gonna say slightly disagree, because this wasn't true as a child or ever. It's true now since having Addison's because of the medication I'm on, I think. Makes me a little bit nauseous, so I don't think it's naturally something I would experience. I'm often told that I'm clumsy. No, this was never true. It is true now. but because I tend to drop things from a health reasons, neurological reasons that I still don't want to go into, but typically I have always had pretty good coordination. I have trouble with fiddly things like buttons and tying shoelaces. Once again, was never true, is true now occasionally, but not, I think, inherently. I sometimes stand just a bit too close to other people. Absolutely not. If we could talk to each other from one end of the pitch, like a football pitch, and still hear each other, I'd be so happy about that. I'd be like, get away from me. I often accidentally break things like pencils by using too much force. I tend to damage them, so yeah, I suppose, yeah, a little bit, I do. It was always true as a child. I would rip the page or something with a pen from putting the pen down too much and things, so it's probably true. I can go hours without eating or drinking, and I'm not bothered if I feel thirsty or hungry. No, that's not true. As little interest as I have in food, I can't tolerate the sensation of hunger or thirst. Like if I am even vaguely thirsty and I'm talking to someone, it's like it's all I'm thinking about. It's something that's never gotten better. Same with hunger. Even if I can still feel the beginnings of hunger and I have food near me, I will find it hard to focus on anything else, because the sensation of that feeling, like that gnawing in your stomach, is so uncomfortable. I often find myself running to the toilet without a second to spare, and sometimes don't make it in time. No, that's not true. I'm acutely aware, once again, of sensation in my bladder. I binge eat and drink more frequently than others. No. I often visit the toilet and find I don't need to go when I get there. No. I don't really know what to say about that. Okay, I'm gonna sign up and get my results now, but it's always interesting to me just what that makes me think of, because I feel like I have a blanket understanding in my head where I would tell myself that I would be very sensitive, like sensory sensitive, really, but I do think I might actually be sensory seeking in a few of those areas. Like, I never really considered the fact that having something in my mouth like all the time was actually a form of sensory input, or anything. So I'm just gonna have a look here and get this going. Well, I'll have a look at the assessment in a minute. Okay, so I've gotten my results, and the way they give it to you is that they rank your sensory results in order of dominance. So what is most strong, like whether you're, I don't know, a texture seeker or a visual avoider, which is mine. My first thing came out as the highest, being a visual avoider of bright lights. I do think this is extremely true. Especially it mentions the idea of like bright lights in shopping centres and things when there's too many sources of light. That's fair. An audio avoider, super sensitive ears. Yeah, that is true. I mean, but it's a hard one because I use earplugs, but then I dislike how they feel as well. I also really struggle with the overhead ear defenders. That was a big part of wanting to learn how to use contact lenses, because I hated how they used to like compress my glasses into my skull. But I still haven't mastered them, so it's hard, because sometimes it's more intolerable for me to feel the headphone on my ear than to listen to whatever noise is distressing me. A scent avoider. Yeah, that is true. It's the smells are difficult. Touch avoider. Yes, that is really true. I don't like standing near people. It's also part of, I think, why I associate things like concerts as things I dislike in terms of noise and stuff, but it's also because I really can't predict what people around me will do, even if they'll like brush off me and things. Like, that's really distressing to think about. So yeah. It says mixed oral. Okay. that I have a mixed profile. So at times I am oversensitive and undersensitive. So I'm oversensitive to taste and undersensitive to input, which would make sense in the sense that I am particularly avoidant of spices, strong flavours, things like that. But I am very much seeking, like I do like having, like I had to take out some chewing gum to film this video, and I didn't need it, I just wanted the input of it. I always found it hard as well as a child, and I still do, of the idea of having a lollipop and sucking it, because I just bite it and break it, because I would want the crunch, and also just really loving toothbrushing, so I think that's fair. I'm not sure what it says in here. Oh, proprioception seeker. You crave sensory stimuli via movement, pressure, and physical contact. Yep, that's fairly true in the sense here they give the example of like being very heavy underfoot, like walking quite heavily. I do. I also like the gym and I like weights for that reason. Recently, I've always disliked, you know, doing certain Pilates moves just because of how they feel. And I've also always felt like I'm very poorly able to control my body shape and maintaining a posture. So somebody online suggested to use ankle weights and wrist weights when doing them if you want to feel anchored. And I tried that and it just transformed it for me. These wrist weights and ankle weights are really light, you know, they're not really testing me or anything, but they just made me really enjoy the movements more because I felt like I was being weighed down. My sister has a weighted blanket. I don't have a weighted blanket, but at times I have needed the weighted blanket. And at times she is simply laying on top of me. So, and I haven't asked for that, by the way. So yes, but I also don't tend to understand the pressure some activities require. That really makes me feel like as a child, like I used to, if my sister or my cousin hit me or something and I hit them back, I wouldn't realise the force at which I did it with. I would think I had mirrored their force, but I would have like hit them way harder. So to this day, like even slamming car doors and things like that, if I was closing a car door, I will slam it, but I will think I've gauged it well, but I obviously haven't. Or like cracking eggs, I can be really aggressive with cracking eggs and things whenever I'm baking for other people. So yeah, that's interesting. Interoception seeker. That I can. Oh yeah, that I would be constantly seeking to be aware of thirst, hunger, needing to go to the bathroom, things like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think, yeah, that really does make a lot of sense. Particularly, I suppose, the one about movement and things. Vestibular avoider. Sports might not be my thing because I find it hard. That isn't true. I think I get where they're coming from because they're talking about things like balance and being able to suddenly know when to stop when you've been running and things, and like, you know, if you've been running, exactly how to slow down your pace and things, being able to gauge that. I would never have been great at that. It's part of also, I think, when I would like when I would hit my cousins back or something, or like slap them or something after they slapped me and I would do it way too hard. It's kind of like that. I would not understand. I never understood in PE in school when they talk about sprinting versus running. I never understood it because I could start maybe sprinting, but it would take so much focus to stay at that level of sprinting because I would immediately go to fast running. So it does make sense with sports. It wasn't that I was bad at it, it's that I found it exhausting because I couldn't maintain what everyone else was doing. And I always felt as well like I was letting people down on team sports. That's why I enjoyed badminton so much, because I would play a lot of singles. So if I lost, it was harder to care or be mad at myself because it was only me I let down. Whereas when it was teams or doubles and things, that was harder. So yeah, I think, yeah, I really do agree with all of those. I think the ones that I wasn't really expecting or was probably the mixed oral, because I knew I was sensory seeking in terms of like needing to chew things and things, but I never really thought about how avoidant I am of like certain flavors and stuff like that. I think I've always put that down to just not having an interest in trying new things, and it might be, but I also do think if I can't control how spicy something will be, or just even how strong a flavour will be, I feel immediately unlikely to use it. So yeah, I think that one is slightly different. And also the coordination one, vestibular avoider and things, and not being able to gauge when to slow down, when to stop running, paces of movement and things like that. Yeah, I do really agree with that. Okay, I found this really interesting. This is just a short little video. I really enjoyed that actually, and it's kind of made me think a little bit about how I have interacted with my health, because I have, you know, found certain versions of physio more difficult than others, because of the movements I'd be required to do or the inputs and things, whereas there's things that I found like consistently really helpful, like I suppose lifting weights and things like that, which would really suit. So I think I'm gonna have to go back over that and maybe do a more detailed one. I might want to ask one of the occupational therapists in work to do that with me, just so I can understand it a bit more. I think I would find that really, really useful. But either way, I hope maybe this got you thinking about your own profile, or if it didn't, maybe just got you thinking about maybe someone in your life who behaves in a way that you don't inherently understand or doesn't, you know, inherently make sense to you. And yeah, it was interesting or helpful or just entertaining for you. Either way, I will see you guys soon, and yeah, I hope you guys have a good week.